Lots of room down the front, and listen, I don't need to shout that way.
No, the reason I don't want to use a microphone is unfortunately there's rather a bad echo with this mic.
Yeah,
Don was sort of speaking in stereo, which is quite a trick, but sounded a bit strange.
I don't know how to play kazoo.
It's not your fault, it's the microphone itself. So we'll just try and speak up. Do let us know if you can't hear us at all.
So anyway, welcome. This year's BSFA special guest for their AGM is Dr. Liz Williams, who I hope most of you know as one of the most interesting and thought-provoking science fiction writers to come out of Britain in the last couple of decades. And she is both and she writes across a very wide range of styles and approaches. But she's always science fictional, and she is and with a background in science, she's also challenging and thoughtful and funny and bloody scary.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not very scared.
If you're not reading her, you should be, and there will be a test at the end. So I'm going to start with that old chestnut. Liz, how did you get into writing, and why science fiction?
Well, I got into writing because my mother wrote, as I've said in the past, and she is primarily a Gothic writer, Gothic novelist. And she started writing in the mid to late 70s, but I think she'd written a lot before that. And she still writes. She's 88 now, and she is still writing, but no longer being published. What I will say is that my career is currently in the past tense. It is wrote, not writes. Because I have essentially given up writing novels. I'm carrying on with short stories, but it is not worth my while economically or in terms of energy and time to write novels. So I am in the same position that my mother found herself in the early 80s with her own publisher, William Hale, and Robert Hale, sorry. And although she is no longer being published, she still writes. I think we need to differentiate getting published and writing.
Yes, that's
So when I can afford to do so, I shall go back to writing, but I probably won't bother with the publishing industry, and I probably won't bother with self-publishing either, because again, it is not worth my time. This is not probably a message that anybody really wants to hear, but it's the reality of where we are at the moment in terms of the contemporary industry. So my mother is still, as far as I am aware, because she doesn't talk about it much, creating worlds, writing stories. She is still writing some science fiction. She's not reading a massive amount of science fiction, but when I was a child she did. She went through a stage of, I suppose, the Grace first of all, and then branching out somewhat into people like Jack Vance. She's never been particularly attached to whether women or men wrote SF. She does not describe herself as a feminist, and she doesn't really care, I don't think, who actually writes the books. But she's still working her way through some of the SF that she was reading then, and I said to Edward this morning, she's just got rid of our entire collection of Paul Anderson, which she has revisited. I am not particularly interested in revisiting at the present time to pass it on to somebody else. But she is still writing, still reading to some extent. We're reading different things. And I am reading more travel and detective fiction at the moment. Mum has gone back to science fiction a bit and is now going back into detective fiction. Because I always find what people reading very interesting.
Oh, absolutely, because I mean, one of the things that goes on in writing is we are all in dialogue with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, the previous panel was talking about, space flight and approaches to that, and it's very interesting how that responds not only to scientific breakthroughs, but also to what's gone before. And you find that it's almost impossible to write a space opera without being in the shadow of Anderson, for example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you as a woman writer, I think there's often that we have less of the tradition. And while we are in that broader tradition of male writing, we often have, not always, but we often have slightly different approaches just based in cultural stuff and how we're told we should express ourselves.
Yes, it is a broad canon. I do regard people like Vance as being very influential on me, although his female characters were frankly dreadful. And usually came to sticky ends. But to me, that wasn't the main point of his writing.
No.
It is the main point of other people's writing, and that's fine. But I do think you need to look at the full expanse of what people are trying to do. And at one end of that is world building, I guess, and the science, and at the other end of that is characterisation. I did find it interesting when the panel previously was talking about Mars narratives, and I suppose we're going to be talking about that later on. My late partner did come from a scientific and mathematical background, and he very much took to Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy because he said they were animated textbooks. He was not keen on excess characterisation in novels because he felt that it delayed the action and it delayed the ideas. So you've basically got whatever what type of novel are you writing? Is it ideas driven, which Stan Robinson stuff is? Is it character driven or is it action driven? There's no reason why you can't have the three together, but it does work best if you have one particular thrust, I think. So
yes, I mean, I would tend to, for me, I would tend to think that a lot of your SF, anyway, as you write other sorts of things as well, it is quite ideas driven, which, although you also have very strong characterisation. I mean, I'm thinking of you don't really, you've done a couple of books that are linked, but your science fiction is very much standalone.
Some of it is linked, The Ghost Sister, Winter Strike and Darkland are all linked.
Yes, and the two Mars books.
And the two Mars books are linked, and some of it, it is ideas driven, but as I said at the start of the panel earlier on, it really does have to be hopefully entertaining. Because people are reading for entertainment as well as for ideas.
I taught one of your short stories as a mini masterclass at Easter Con, the Banquet of the Lords of Light. Right. And one of the people who came along and said, "It's a beautiful language." And then she makes my brain go spong.
My work here is done.
And that's something that I find, I always, when I read you, I'm always looking to see how you did that. But I mean, I'm thinking...
do I know?
Yes. Do you know how you make people's brains go spong?
Yeah, I mean, the other trouble with me is that I don't, obviously, maybe this is obvious, I don't know. I don't reread what I've already written. And it's quite old now, some of it is about 20 years old. So I get a visceral sense of panic when somebody says, in that story that you wrote about the cat, and this happened, and my brain went spot. And I'm sort of thinking, fuck, I don't remember writing that.
I'm not going to ask you how many short stories you've written.
It's under 100.
Not including the 100 Stories project?
No, not including the 100 stories. That was separate. They were only a page. It's under 100, but it's probably close to 100.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's close to about, I think, 50 to 60 published. So it's a lot of it out there. So but hence the sense of panic. That was one of mine, was it? Right, what did I write?
I tend in my head, and I'm probably wrong because this is me thinking about someone else's work, to divide your work into sort of themes, because you have your what I think of as your philosophical writing, which would be something like The Poison Master, or The Ghost Sister, or the Mars books to some extent.
Yes, The Poison Master is more an occult novel.
Yes, absolutely. But it's framed with aliens and star travel, and it's a very difficult. That looks very difficult to categorise.
Things like, what did I say?
And then you write things which are fairly straight SF.
They're more sort of they're more space opera.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of the one. Is it Banner of Souls, the Russian space project?
Nine
Layers of Sky. Yes, you see.
No, it's that's more of an SF. Yeah, it is an SF, but that's an SF novel about somebody else's future.
Yes.
Or what I perceive somebody else's apprehension of their future to be. So it's against more ideas probably.
Yeah. And then you have the Chen novels, which are somewhere between urban fantasy and occult and crime. Yeah.
Those are written for fun.
Yes, and they are a lot of fun. If people have not read the Inspector Chen novels, please do. But they riff off this wonderful idea that's a real world idea that Singapore might franchise itself around the world.
Yes, I thought that was an incredibly stupid idea. It is a real idea. Singapore was going to franchise itself. I get accused of racism whenever I say somebody else's cultural idea is a stupid idea. It was a stupid idea, and it would have been a stupid podcast. Who wants more?
The sad thing is you probably get takers from multiple blasts.
Yes, but it was an idea that was moved to New Scientists. They were actually going to basically clone the city, street plans, infrastructure, government, and hire it out to other places. China was one candidate, and parts of Africa were another. And I still think it's a stupid idea, but it wouldn't work.
But you ran with it. But you ran with it and blended it with the idea of the heavens and hells, but leading into the real world.
I sort of did. I didn't really take much of that. I took the initial idea, but it was basically to use somewhere that wasn't actually Hong Kong. But I'm afraid it actually is Hong Kong, which I don't know terribly well, but I do know somewhat. So yeah, it was. I like mixing ideas up. I like putting different ideas together. I think most science fiction writers do. I think we are encouraged by publishers to be a lot more conventional than many people's imaginations actually deserve.
Yes,
I see people getting strapped, unless they're very successful, getting strapped into particular categories, genres, and so on. Chris Priest is somebody who suffers from this a lot.
Yes, absolutely.
Always has done. But we don't know how to market it.
Yes.
Well, bloody market it. Go out and sell it, put it on things in the tube, spend some money.
Absolutely.
The bottom of marketing is money, and that's the publishing industry is having problems because the money men are killing books.
Oh, absolutely. And in particular, they want predictable bestsellers.
Yes,
but nobody can predict a bestseller.
No. My editor at Random, Bantam Spectrum, had some movie guys in the office. This is about 15 years ago. And they said, well, gee, why don't you just produce bestsellers? And she said, well, why don't you just make blockbusters? And I went, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And I did speak to somebody in the movie industry. Chen has been optioned a number of times, and it hasn't come to anything. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But the guy I spoke to said, I'm basically a television producer. You do realise that all television producers are basically 10-year-old boys and they haven't grown up. And I said, well, that's actually not very encouraging. And he replied, I know. That was that. Now, editors are not in that category. And most science fiction editors are pretty sophisticated. They are fans. They know the genre. They don't want to have to deal at that level, but they do have to. Because when they go to accounting meetings, the accountants go, oh, I'm going to produce bestsellers. Peter Lavery at Macmillan said it just had gone ever since he had been in publishing like that, where basically you would get the go-ahead to fund interesting books, which is what Tor Macmillan was doing at the start of the 2000s. A lot of us benefited from that. And then they panic and say, oh, these books aren't selling terribly well. You've got to tell the authors to stop. You've got to cut contracts. So they cut contracts, and about 6 months later, you go into a accountancy meeting and say, oh, you don't seem to have many authors on the books. And he said, this just happens again and again and again. There is no learning curve. Partly because it's not even the same people, but there is no policy. And that's, welcome to global capitalism.
I do occasionally wonder with science fiction that we are dealing with possible futures, and yet nobody has yet written the great accountancy science fiction novel. And I throw that out because we
Charlie Stross has.
I was going to say Charlie Stross is getting close.
He's getting close, but we do actually need a new accountancy that doesn't work this way. Would you, big-brained people, please put your brains onto this one?
But it's pitching it. If I go to an editor and say, I have this really great idea for a novel about future insurance. I can see, like that is a lead balloon up there.
McDonald has just written a book about capitalism gone mad. Seems to be, people don't seem to know what to say.
Yes, some people, thank God, are actually doing this stuff, and to date getting away with it.
I have a hashtag, which I'm no longer on Twitter, but the hashtag is still there. It's Red Writer. It's for those of us who are pushing back politically. Please use it if you would like to.
I'm not sure whether I am really. I criticise everything.
Yes.
But I don't have solutions.
I don't.
The Mars novels are a critique of the sort of mid-70s feminist novel in which everybody left the evil men and ran away and lived on a commune with horses, and it was great.
Yeah, no, I love Mars novels.
That had to happen because that better than swing did, I think, have to happen. But I don't want to go into a matriarchal future because I have been We're all girls.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. People are people, and will do crap things regardless of their gender identity.
Yeah, and people will do crap things because they think they have good reasons for doing so. It's important not to patronise people by saying, why did you do that? It was monumentally stupid. But when you actually start interrogating, you find out it doesn't make perfect sense of what it is. So I'm in some ways I am quite left-wing, in some ways I'm quite right-wing. And that might change.
Well, I tend to think that writing is in some senses a political act, just because
you're bloody doing it.
Because you're bloody doing it, exactly. But at the same time, I think the writers who are the most politically engaged are the ones who raise questions, not necessarily the ones who preach. And I think the fact that you raise questions across the spectrum, because there is no one answer.
No, there isn't.
And I think that's, again...
And it needs to be constantly interrogated, because otherwise it's going to get fucked up. It already gets fucked across the whole board, it gets fucked up.
So if I were to briefly remember where we are, so in your sense, we could say that much of your writing is engaged with the epistemological question.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes. That's life, the universe, and everything for anybody who has not had to sit through for a first year philosophy class.
No, for everybody who has had to sit through a first year philosophy class, which my doctoral thesis is on epistemology. It's on questions of knowledge, hypothesis, how we can know, how we can believe, how we can differentiate between knowledge and belief. And this sort of thing is very rigorous. It's also fundamentally boring, actually, unless you're into it. It's a really geeky sort of subject, but it is fundamental because we are currently living in an age in which facts are seen as optional. We always have things.
Someone tries to just post-truth.
We are post-truth, and of course we're not bloody post-truth. But the left do this and the right do this, by the way. So I'm not.
And the centre.
And the centre. But this was it was brought home to me a few weeks ago with a friend on Facebook, and I have a lot of people of different political persuasions on Facebook.
Yeah, I don't know why you don't kill half the people on Facebook.
Well, I did kill her because she's a Trump supporter. I know her in real life. And she posted this thing on. This is indicative, okay, so bear with me as I anecdotalise. She told me the story about how the Queen was refusing to see Obama when he came over to England. And she linked to this article, which was on, I don't know, spuriouspolitics.com or something. And
Fox News.
Fox News, yeah. And it wasn't Fox News, actually. It was very similar. And I don't often engage on the net with this sort of thing, but it did irritate me. So I went and looked it up. And of course, the Queen hadn't refused to see Obama at all. She was seeing him at Windsor Castle, where she often said things thanks for. I think he's the President of America. She's not going to refuse to see him anyway. So I pointed this out to Anne, and she said airily, yes, I saw that article, but I preferred the other one. This is the ultimate truth. And it's like, I don't like that, your truth. Oh, what's the other thing the other day? Oh yeah, you liberals only rely on facts because you can't think for yourselves. Crunchy noise you heard at the back of the room was logic collapsing.
I think you just explained Brexit.
This is whether we're talking about the current European thing, whether we're talking about the American politics, whatever we are talking about at the moment, we are coming into this sort of realm which wouldn't actually have been the case some years ago, when you could still beat people to death with the iron bar of reason. Reason is seen as an optional thing. It's seen as a trick.
This is this Maoist idea of waiting expert, and you are automatically suspect if you know anything at all. That's the thing I find the most sinister of all, actually.
Yes.
Because I've done enough reading about the Cultural Revolution to know just how dangerous that is, and physically and psychologically for the whole culture.
Yes, somebody says something and they are suspect because of what they are, rather than what they're actually saying.
Something you've written about,
actually,
because in your India novel, that's the theme, and that is
to some extent.
Yes.
Thinks frantically what they might like.
You have people you have characters who are very much of the opinion that they can have their own facts, and characters who are so certain of their own rectitude that they are willing to commit any act.
It's partly self-righteousness, it's partly stupidity, it's partly that people are very much embedded within a particular context.
The name of the novel.
Yeah,
how is this interview?
We have a number of American friends who are very pro-gun.
Yes.
trying to talk to them about the fact that we're not all actually slaughtering each other over here with knives, which some of them seem to think, is a problem, because I think to them it is, and it's taken me ages to kind of get my head around this, that it's actually a religious issue to them. They are gun worshippers. Yeah. And the Second Amendment is a piece of religious dogma. They are used to treating religious texts as religious texts, and they treat political texts as religious texts. In the
Selectively,
but selectively, yes. But they treat religious texts as
Oh,
selectively as well. They're not going around wearing nylon and eating shellfish.
And I've never seen a single member of the biblical literalists outside a bank protesting about them lending money at interest. In fact, they usually very keen on that.
Yes, they are very keen on that. Well, Islam actually sincerely is not.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
no, that's that is
yeah, but it's worrying in terms of the factual stuff. And yes, scientific facts change. What was perceived as a fact 300 years ago is not today, but it is as a result of an evidential process. It's not a matter of personal preference and selection, usually.
No, quite. But I mean, you can have a lot of fun with playing with truths that were scientific truths in the 16th century.
Well, John Crowley's a little bit.
Well, exactly.
Egypt actually is the one. Egypt is the one in which things actually were different.
Yes.
And then there was a sort of a weird kind of ontological shift, and they turned into something else, and then they turned into stuff. So people haven't really changed their minds. They've just discovered different scientific facts.
And
I think that's how it goes.
Yes, I think, and it's something you play with in the Poison Master and in a lot of your short fiction.
I'd like to play with it more actually, but there is always some danger of becoming incredibly dull.
I would find it incredibly dull. If I ever win the lottery, which will not happen because I don't play, I will start the grant for this to write stuff so I can read it.
I'd like to do that.
Everyone in this room, win the lottery, give all your money to Liz.
Yes, do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd like to follow too, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. Do you like a bit? Well, I was going to say, would you like a pony, but you've already got.
I've got a pony. Yes. No more ponies. Thank you.
How is Ancient Horse?
Ancient Horse is just fine. Yes.
Ancient Horse is a notorious internet character.
Yes, it's like cats of fandom basically, but I do mainly mention my animals on Facebook because I don't want to talk about anything else for reasons that I think are now obvious.
I think this is a shame actually, because I think a lot of people don't realise how erudite you are in history, philosophy of science, and in the history of intellectualism.
I am, and I do know a lot about it, but then again, why would people necessarily be that interested?
Why are we interested?
Well, you lot might be.
I told you there'd be questions.
But I'm also getting increasingly reticent about putting my opinions on the internet.
Oh God.
And that's not to do with the fact that the government is watching it. The government doesn't give a shit.
No.
Not about my opinions anyway. But the level of acrimony and toxicity on the net is such that I don't have the energy to go to it. Like many social members, especially the last few days.
I mean, the being female on the internet thing earlier this week, Yvette Cooper sent death threats against herself, her children, and her grandchildren for being in politics.
I've never had death threats.
No, I've had.
Unless you can't acquire Kari, who gives death threats to everybody, so that's fine.
I've had a whole bunch of other fairly unpleasant threats and promises made to me about what I deserve, but I don't think anyone's ever said they're going to kill me. I've been told I'll be spat on a few times.
Nice.
But it is interesting that
I do know some of the guys who get similar though.
Yeah, also
so it's sort of across. I think women do get it a lot more.
Yes.
But a lot of them get it from other women.
Yeah. Well, the Guardian.
Back to the girls' school.
The Guardian said that they're the 10 most abused reporters. That 8 of them are women.
Yeah.
Two of them are black men. I don't know how many of the women are women of colour, but some of them are.
Yes.
And that the abuse comes from everybody, men, women, and people of other genders. It is not just that men are crap. Men are not just crap. I know many men who are not crap, who are not sitting because it's not the men are crap.
No, it's everybody's crap. Except you lot.
Yes, you lot are all lovely.
90% of everybody is crap.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something I did a blog post about a while back in terms of, and it revolves around the writing as well, in terms of do we have to be public? how public do we need to be? Do we need to make our opinions known? What happens when we don't? What happens when we do? What happens when we choose not to? Because I think for the first time, unless you count letters and the world of letters, and perhaps public speaking, we are in a realm in which all of our thoughts can be seen. There is a layer taken off. You know, if you look at Facebook, that's what we've basically got, is people thinking, people opinionating.
Yes.
I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. People giving their opinions.
Oh, absolutely. And they're very interesting.
And they are often very interesting, but sometimes they are exceedingly acrimonious because that's the way it goes. And I think this is the first time we've actually sort of become a quasi-telepathic society in that we can actually see what people are thinking.
Yes.
And we don't like it.
No.
And you wouldn't like it if you went out. You know, if I go out into the average Sunset pub, I don't want to hear what the people are thinking. Trust me. And I don't necessarily want to see it on screen, but we do.
Yes.
And there are dangers inherent in that. If you really object to what people are actually saying and thinking, you start narrowing your Facebook feed down, and then you narrow it down to a point where you are actually operating in a bubble, which is why political results come as such a huge shock to some people.
Yes.
They're not a shock, they're what the general zeitgeist is.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it is, I think it also explains why the internet is full of cats.
It does.
People actually need a safety valve away from this toxicity.
Well, it's also, what I'm doing at the moment is doing a big project, part of which has involved Imperial and the tangential capacity on artificial intelligence. I'm writing a report on the state of artificial intelligence in London. So this is looking at what the university is doing.
How many synthetic Londoners are there?
But there are a lot of startups, hell of a lot of startups, and there are organisations like Google, DeepMind. Google's cat recognition program did not take place here, because I think it was a California one. But
right.
This is what's called, and a lot of you will probably be familiar with this, so bear with me. A lot of this is unsupervised learning. So basically, you send the system out into the internet to look at lots and lots of images and come back with something when it's learned it.
Right.
So this thing has taught itself to recognise what a cat looks like. It's really complicated. Cat pictures. Millions of pounds get spent on this. It does have it obviously has a real world application, not that the thing is going, I'm going to build a robot that goes out and looks at cats.
They should.
You should. But you are going to build a robot that goes out and looks at cities,
Yes.
and looks at terrain, and looks at people running towards you with guns. Because a lot of this is defence funded, but not all of it. Some of it is the driverless car stuff.
Yes.
How does the driverless car recognise what it sees? It's not all sensors. The idea is that ideally you'd like it to actually look at the world and be able to interpret what it sees. But machine vision is incredibly complex. So the work that I'm doing at the moment is basically it's science fiction, but we are living in it. I'm not sure that Elon Musk is right in these predictions of doom, and I'm not sure that I asked somebody here whether he thought we were actually approaching singularity, and he said that it was possible, but he wasn't personally attached to it, but it could happen. And he said we are definitely looking at a superintelligence by the end of the century, according to him. So all of this stuff, the future is kind of rushing towards us. At the moment it's getting buried in a morass of stuff, gadgets.
Yeah.
There is an awful lot of things being produced that I think provide another layer between you and reality, between you and other people, and between you and the world you actually see around you. I mean, I don't have a mobile phone. I gave those up, but I can't really smug about it because I'm pretty much umbilically attached to a laptop.
This is true. I have seen this.
Yes, and a lot of us are. It's because it's email. It's a good way to communicate with me, and I want to see what's going on. So I'm not knocking this, but I think that cameras can provide a layer between you and reality. You're too busy photographing to take on board what you're actually seeing, experiencing, feeling, being aware of. And after a while, you get very dissociated from your physical self.
Yes.
And this is, I think, why some of the technology is a bad thing. But more and more and more of it is coming down the pipe.
Yes.
It's wearables, sensors that you can wear that will feed back your state to your house or whatever. DeepMind is looking at kidney programs that will assess the state of your kidneys. And basically that's going to be a wearable. If you have incipient kidney problems, you wear something and it will monitor
That's
those.
a really good idea.
It's a great idea, and the first thing that Trevor, who is my partner, who is much more
Insurance companies?
insurance
Yes,
companies,
that was the first thing I thought of.
yeah,
as well.
exactly.
Yes.
First thing he said was insurance.
Yeah.
And DeepMind is only one aspect of the medical thing. They are tied up to the NHS here in London, and they are getting all the information about people's kidney, patients' kidney problems.
I mean, this is the part of something that you know, I'm a historian, but I also do a certain amount of literary criticism. And one of the things that I'm seeing discussed a lot in those sorts of spheres is the commodification of the body.
Yeah.
And the ideas of and how we have packaged ourselves as objects in different ways.
Yeah.
And yet we are currently in a stage where we are very rarefied from our bodies, more so than perhaps we've ever been. And
Yes.
we no longer trust the body. We want something external to tell us what to do with our
Yes.
bodies, which sometimes in that case is valuable because it detects medical conditions that you can't
You can't do it yourself, yeah.
until then much more advanced. But sometimes it is actually very frightening. I mean, people who rely on people who have no sense of their own ability,
Well,
physical
yeah.
ability, and people who are so trammelled by what they think they should look like that they that they try and vanish, or they, you know, it's.
Yes, it's definitely a problem in some sectors. I talked to somebody who's an investigative journalist, and she's in her 50s now, and she's being used for less and less stuff, or even though she's more experienced, because they want younger, prettier women to do it. This does not apply to Somerset, where you're looking good if you brush your hair in the morning. You know, we're not so besieged
No, we're not.
by this as if you are if you work in the media, if you work in a city, actually.
I mean, I'm going to get the numbers wrong because it was a while ago that I read this, and I am also notoriously bad with numbers because I have dyscalculia. You know,
Yeah.
I can't pronounce it. But there was an article I was reading around Christmas time, which said that if you were an alien species observing television, you would think that human beings were 80% male and 90% white. And everybody, and while men came in a variety of ages, no one else did. And there were almost no children. And that I think is very interesting because we have reached a state where we almost regard normal as a corrected version of reality.
Yes, it's not a default.
No.
It's you've got to strive for it.
Yes, absolutely. And the laying to one side the complete ludicrousness of the plots.
Yes.
You've got a better picture of everyday reality in soap opera, a British soap opera, not an American soap opera, because the casting in those is glamour, than you have in any drama series.
But I think the person who really brought this home to me was actually Charlie Stross, who said to me a while ago, it was a conversation about surveillance, like CCTV. I'm quite grateful for some CCTV. We get attacks on the shop, people try and kick the window, that sort of stuff.
Also, if you're avoid in public, you've been surveyed your whole life automatically.
You've been surveilled all life. And Charlie said it's not what they're doing with it now, it's what they could be doing with it 70 years down the line.
When I was
Absolutely right.
When I was working at my last university, the security department was so anxious to ensure that the unimportant people, staff, were not wasting time, that they put a camera in the bathroom of that used by the support staff.
Right.
And when the female support staff said we do not want this, they said, well, we don't want you wasting time in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it just people will abuse technology.
Yes. I know what people are using. There's a very big, very successful system called Brandwatch, which I was using last year at a particular corporation. The government got it first, and then they bought it first, and then it was sold to this one corporation, but it's now out there in the world. It's being used generally. It's used for social media monitoring, and it's sentiment analysis. It's also looking at what people are saying about a brand. You put in certain keywords, you get all of this stuff back, and it's very sophisticated. And it's also a massively grey area because it was becoming apparent to me after about 2 weeks that I was seeing private Twitter messages. Although I can't, if I clicked on the Twitter feed in general, it would say this is a locked feed, but I can still see the message if it contains certain keywords. And that is not something that I was wildly happy about, or in fact something my employers were wildly happy about. Now that's a version of this system that's being licensed to a corporation. You can imagine what the government are doing with it. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not particularly paranoid, and I'm not actually particularly worried about the government watching me.
Absolutely.
You know, this is not a personal thing. But that raised a number of big red flags.
Yeah. I am actually more, personally I'm more worried about being marketised than I am about being spied on by the government.
Kind of,
That's
that's
because
the
I
end
find
of
big
it.
corporations
Yeah.
more annoying because I
Yes.
can't unelect them.
That's the end of it. But occasionally, you know, I look up carrots on the net, and then carrots, spider now, pops up on the feed. And that is irritating. But occasionally it actually comes up with something I want.
I think it was
So it's like, oh, that's good.
Frida Warrington, I think it was, decided to see if she could manipulate the Facebook algorithm by looking at certain sorts of things and managed to set her adverts that she was able to surgical crosses for about a week.
Yes, it's quite fun to play with it. I see what you can do with it. But yeah, and more and more organisations are using this stuff now. And for marketing, it makes perfect sense. And for actually seeing what your customers are saying about you, it makes a lot of sense. Because you really want to know what your customers are saying, especially if they are bitching and moaning, which they usually do. So, very few people. How often do you actually go onto Facebook and go, God, I bought this and it's fantastic? Sometimes you do.
Yes.
But if the bottom of your shoe falls off, you're right on there going, God, I can't believe this.
Well, yes, iHateRyanair.com.
Yes, yeah, right. Yes.
Okay, we've got 10 minutes and we haven't actually got onto.
We haven't had any questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't got onto, we've gone to a lot, about 9/10 of the iceberg, which is in this unit. So, questions? Phil?
You're talking just about the rise of the post-factual society. It's a horrible,
Yeah.
scary phrase. But
Yes.
how, or is it possible to fight back? How can we ameliorate that, do you think?
I don't know, because pointing out facts to people clearly doesn't work. Otherwise, they don't accept them in the first place. Beating them over the head with reason sometimes does work, actually. But you have to it takes energy, and it's stressful, and it's acrimonious. People do listen to reason, sometimes only after a long time of being wrong and having it personally impact upon them.
And sometimes only if that reason is presented to them in words they find personally acceptable by someone they regard as having a proper amount of social capital as well. There are
Yes.
things that a white man can say and be listened to, which other categories of people say. It's called the Scalzi effect.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Yes.
John?
You start off saying you no longer want to commit the time to write novels.
Yeah.
Can you be a writer if you don't publish? If you don't do, if you
Interesting. Yeah.
flesh out an idea, you don't go through all the polishing process and the marketing process to make it become a novel in the world.
You can write. Whether you would describe yourself as a writer is a moot point. I personally think if anybody writes, they are a writer, because it's verb to noun. But it's, and I do think we are actually lucky if we are able to do that. I couldn't be a solo actress, for example, without an audience. If you're acting in your bedroom, you're not an actor, you're probably a lunatic. It's not something that you can do solo, whereas you can write solo with very little output.
How important is an audience, though, for the stuff you have written?
With me, increasingly less as the years go by. I've said a lot of what I want to say. And yeah, a lot of it's making the best of a bad job. You know, I'm not being published, I'm not getting publishing contracts. I'm not that worried about whether my opinion is out there now. Otherwise I'd do a big blog or something like that. It gets less important. And that may change, it may be an age thing, it may be, some people might find the reverse. Yeah, but it's an interesting point.
I think Sandra and then
It was a similar question, actually. When you write, I mean, it's not so much a question of getting your opinions out there, but don't you feel the need to get feedback from people?
No, no, worryingly, about less and less. So it's nice to get feedback, and I think it's helpful to the workshop context is helpful.
To sort of share
Yeah.
your vision with.
No, I'm becoming in a way more, and this is going to sound like me being a lunatic in my bedroom, more of a classic occultist. which is you do the work, in a way talking about it diminishes it, so you don't talk about it. And why would you talk about it?
You're not about to murder half of Glastonbury, though, are you?
No, good.
Just
No,
checking.
this is not that sort of work.
No, good. I was thinking of that novel by Rosemary H. Hill, where the cool, very cool guy turns out to have got an entire series of novels plotting the plot of mass murder.
Yes, and you know what? Everybody thinks that they know the cool guy, that cool guy in autism, and his name's even bloody Julian. He's like somebody that everybody knows. Across, you know, there are different Julians. They're all called Julian.
This is
And the face is black, and got round glasses. She must have met somebody.
She lost her. I do recommend this is a fantastic series.
It's Lydia
It's
Bass.
the first one, the Book of Night and Moon.
It's Spell Book and Murder
Book of Murder.
by Rosemary H. Hill. I highly recommend it. It's an American series about witchcraft in the 90s. Very fun.
Roger.
Are you now becoming a writer and not an author?
Well, I've never seen
And the
myself...
author being a publisher?
Yes, I've never really seen myself as an author because I always had a terrible feeling as an author was male and wore a beret. My work,
Yes.
about which would go on at great length. So I have this terrible stereotype in my head. I've always seen myself as a writer. Really. But yes, sorry, that does sound facetious, but it's actually true.
Roy.
Giving you feedback, Les, if you don't mind.
Yes.
I really like your phrase about the quasi-scientific society. I think that really excites me. And yeah, I'm kind of...
Take it away, do stuff with it.
I hope to steal it.
Yes, please do. Yes. It's a metaphor that I think is it a metaphor or is it an analogy? It's something that I haven't really unpacked. So do feel free to put your own spin on it. I'm sure it's not leaving to me. Thank you.
Any more? Yes.
You talked about how the sort of horribleness of certain online discourses is Gamers Gate and then
Yeah.
from one end and then also stuff like bear with me, there's Islamic fundamentalism on the other, particular
Yeah.
kind of patriarchal study. Do
Oh,
you think that now this is like a vampire being pulled out into the light, this is the last gasp of patriarchy, that we're actually seeing it?
I don't know.
Or is it just making itself stronger in some vile way or what?
I think it's possibly, unfortunately, I think it's possibly making itself stronger,
Oh.
which is depressing because you would think that if some of this stuff actually just got dragged out and people went, ugh, you know, isn't that revolting? A lot of people look at it and think, hey, that's really cool. So it's depressing as hell, actually.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to think that it was actually having a light shone on it and that light would diminish it. I don't think that's the case.
I think one thing we've seen in the past few weeks is
Yeah.
where major political discourse has got so toxic and it's become acceptable again
Yes, I
to be
know.
openly racist.
Yes.
It's terrible.
There is
Yeah, it is, and it comes up in odd areas as well. And I was talking to a family member who's very into the folk scene in Sussex, and he said in the last decade or so, a lot of songs that people are singing are English songs, and the point is that they're an English song. They're shit songs. You know, some dreadful old piece of whatever that somebody's dressed up in the 18th century. The point is that they're English. We're certainly seeing it in paganism with the rise of Norse odorless nationalism. Which is very, very unpleasant.
Yes.
It is very unpleasant. It is far right. It is white supremacist. It is misogynistic.
Yeah.
And it's becoming, because of the net unfortunately is putting these people together, whereas previously they kind of just festered away in their spaces.
It is also an absolute and utter misrepresentation of that culture.
Yes, it's totally bollocks.
I am actually a historian of that period, and I'm offended by that
Yeah, you know
for all
what
sorts of reasons.
But yeah,
And because I'm a historian of the public, I have to be polite to these people when
yes.
because you're not allowed to call them unprintable words on the internet.
No, you can call them unprintable words on the internet. It's what the whole thing degenerates because they're not
Yes,
necessarily going to
exactly.
listen to you and abusing them.
But I may turn around to one of my cats and say X, Y, Z is a bleep, 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 bleep. Not my cats have my cats have foul mouths.
I came up with the Donald Trump thing this morning. A tiny-fingered, Cheeto-faced, weasel-wearing shithead. And I thought, that's a classic piece of abuse, actually.
Yes.
But again, it's abuse.
And
Yes.
it's almost Shakespearean, that one, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is very Shakespearean. Yes, it's a proper organic use of abusive language. but it's still abuse, and it's becoming far more acceptable, I think, to use that sort of terminology. And people will find excuses for people who do that, regardless of where they are on the political spectrum, and that's problematic.
I think we have time for one last question, and Terry had her hand up. So Terry.
Sorry, probably
complete change. All right. I'm halfway through your Diary of a Witchcraft Shop, but I haven't come across the real surprise. Dare I ask what got you into writing that rather than...
It's a blog. It was a blog, yeah, it was a blog. It's a shop's live journal, basically. There is a lot more stuff in that than was on the live journal. Because it is all true. Unfortunately, a lot of it there would be more true stuff if I wasn't afraid of getting sued by a couple of people, which I am.
I can well believe it's true, and I can hear the voice in virtually every line of it.
Well, sometimes it's my voice, sometimes it's Trevor's.
Trevor's, yes, it's what Trevor's believed.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes, this Trevor contributed to the blog as well, so
there's more of a rumble, but it's Trevor.
he uses more capitals.
There's a word that begins with A and ends with E and has an H in the middle that tends to crop up a lot in which they were writing as well.
Yes. We are supposed to be doing number 3. Ian Waits wants us to do number 3. Unfortunately, we had to actually live it. That takes a little